So, I'm ready. Any questions? Today will be an open discussion, and today, question and answers. No questions? Here, this is my, what you and I talked about the other. We have a question.
Could you explain the process of going within during meditation or navigating the inner worlds?
Okay, what do they mean by navigating the inner worlds? Do they understand that? The process for meditation, for reaching meditation, most people think meditation is just closing your eyes and calming your body down and just being silent. That's not meditation. It takes a true meditation, it takes a long time to reach. And one of the ways that you reach meditation, the only way that you can reach meditation is through constant concentration. So you must train your body and mind to be able to concentrate on one thing and make that one thing your whole world. And then when you can begin to communicate with that one thing, you will enter the realm of contemplation. And in that realm of contemplation, your psychic abilities are enhanced. In other words, your physical senses and your astral senses are merged, And when they merge, you express psychic senses. You begin to use your psychic senses. And you keep going on using your psychic senses, meaning that, and if you were concentrating on a particular object, you can see the object physically, you can touch the object physically, you can determine the age of the object, you know the length and the breadth and the height of the object, and that's all you can do. I mean, you know whether the object is cold, hot, or solid, liquid, whatever, based on based on those senses. But what happens when you move into the realms of contemplation, you begin to see the mental structures of the object. In other words, you'll see the aura that's around the object. You'll see the energy exchange around the object. You'll begin to see the mentality of the object. You'll begin to see the deposits of the mentality of the object. In other words, anyone who touched it, they exchange of mental, emotional, and atomic particles. There's a bonding of electrons between that object and that person. So you see the residue of that, and you begin to know the object. So after contemplation, after being able to contemplate on that object and concentrate and contemplate on that object for long periods of time, constantly, and the measure is if you can do it for 12 hours straight, then you enter the realm of meditation. And then after at meditation, you become one with that object. And then after being able to meditate for long periods of time on a particular object, then you enter the realms of samadhi type meditation. And after doing samadhi meditation for a long time, then you can enter a cosmic conscious level of meditation. So that is true meditation. Now, with these meditations, what's happening within your auric structure and your physical structure and your mental structure is that, first of all, what happens is that through concentration, you begin to clear out the notic pathways, because the more sharping and precise your thought become, the more foolishness you do away with. So it has a centrifuge effect on your auric makeup and your nadis, and you begin to throw off negative and useless thought, and you become precise in your thinking, and you become even your aura begins to change, and the notic pathways clear the precise pathway to the chakras, to the many chakras, and it begins, and the Ida and the Pingala begins to work in concert together, and it charges the brain on many levels to allow the merging of the astral and the physical, and then later on the etheric and the psychic, and then you enter into levels of contemplation, adeptship, mastery, and all of that. So that's true meditation, and during this time, you gain control over the power of Kundalini. You'll be able to raise Kundalini up through the spine consciously and bring it back down the spine consciously once you gain control over your concentration and contemplation. And The movement of Kundalini brings about meditation. I hope I answered your question.
And by inner worlds, they mean navigating through the things you see or that come up, like the colors, images, people, spirits, past lives, or feelings.
If you want to reach the higher levels, such as true meditation, you don't get caught up in the psychic images. You see them, experience them, analyze them, and discard of them, and move on to the next one. You don't get caught up in it. If you get caught up in it, then you will stay at that level for a long time, because you gain an emotional connection to it when it's not necessary. You have to use the tools and the skills that the mystics and the yogis tell you. Remember, the pathway to meditation, the psychic world is the obstacle. So once you begin to see the colors, study the colors, understand what the colors mean, chart the colors, make sure you see what message that you're gaining. The same way if you looked into the sky and you seen thunder clouds gathering or rain clouds gathering, then you notice the formation, you notice the color, you notice whether it's going to be a rainstorm or a thunderstorm, and then you move on. Now you have grasped that knowledge. So now you move on with that. You don't linger on it. You don't begin to just dwell in that so much. Once you learn exactly what it means, you move on. And you use that knowledge when necessary to use that knowledge. But some people, what they'll do, they'll say, okay, it's time for me to go set up a shop. They get a shop and say, world psychic, world-renowned psychic, and $5 a session, $10 a session, or $100 a session, and they get caught up in that world, and that's not what you need to do. If you want to go further, then you analyze it, learn the knowledge behind it, get to recognize it and know what it means, and move on. Because what will happen, the more you do that, the more you will learn more about that particular thing. Because when that color begins to morph into something else, you'll know why it's doing that. You'll know why it takes on that color. And it is as though if you understand the electronic magnetic spectrum, and also the electronic configuration and chemistry, you'll know that an object is a particular color because of how it enters the electronic magnetic spectrum in manifestation. So the angle in which it enters, it may take on a blue or red or orange or yellow or whatever. And that's the only reason why it's that color. It takes on the properties of that as it comes into the gross physical world. So as those electrons spin through that portion of the electronic magnetic spectrum. So you, as a mystic, you take notice to the formation of that energy and why it's taking on that color and why is that and what does it mean and what is it predicting or pointing to. Not to get caught up in it, but just look at it as a message. Any other question?
For those of us just joining, today's class is an open discussion. So feel free to type your questions out in the chat. We'll go ahead and answer them for you. In Dr. King's mystic yoga breathing lecture,
Mm-hmm.
he quickly says a comment that the breathing or the breath is just an excuse to pull in the prana.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering, does that mean there are more potent ways of pulling in prana without breathing? Or maybe through visualization is stronger than?
Of course there is, but you got to understand this. If you go back to Patanjali's sutras, the sutras of Patanjali,
Mm-hmm.
and where he lays out what's known today as Raja Yoga, or the 8 limbs of yoga, right?
Mm-hmm.
In there, he expressed the fact that karmically, all the energies that you need, is within your aura.
Mm-hmm.
So the breath is a way or an excuse. In other words, if you think about that statement and think about the breath or pranayama, let's say pranayama.
So we should not need to breathe? We should just...
No, understand that the breath or the pranayama, right, is a way to begin to control the 5 major pranas and 5 minor pranas within the auric structure and physical body. That's a way to control. It's an excuse to bring about conscious mental control over the flow of energies. Okay? So because you will continue to breathe 21,600 times a day, whether you think about it or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but now when you begin to regulate at 21,600 times a day breath in segments of that day, as the yogi or the mystic is taught, you begin to control the energy within the body. See, you begin to take mental control over that energy. Now, before that, your superconscious and supraconscious and subconscious mind is taking control over those things. The supraconscious mind, which is the upper part of the superconscious mind, where is the superconscious mind, then you have the subconscious and the conscious. But then within the superconscious mind, which is more of a soul part of the mind, or control of mind, or control of consciousness, because the soul needs no consciousness. But it sends a signal down to the superconscious mind, which is more of your higher self, to regulate that according to the law of karma, of your own karmic pattern.
Mm-hmm.
for this particular life cycle. You know, uh, it dictates how many years, days, weeks, or whatever you're going to live. But the yogis say if you manipulate that through pranayama, you can either increase or decrease your time here, but gain greater knowledge and understanding by doing that. So yes, all the energy you need is there. All the mind energy you need is there. You know, in order to complete this cycle, will you use it in the best practice or best level? That's up to you. You know, so he's trying to have you to understand that it's a tool. The pranayama is a tool in order to manipulate the subtle energies within the body. You know, because as the Vinanda yogis would tell you, that which they are masters of Raja Yoga or depths of Raja Yoga, that you can do all this through mental exercises. You know, you can gain control over the subtle energies through mental exercises. But in the beginning, they have to use pranayama. You know, because you, as they said, and the many yogis before them said it, and after them said it, that you can gain energy through eating food. You can gain energy through drinking water, right? And you can, if you stop eating food, it might take you a couple months before you exit the body for good, this body for good. If you start drinking water, it might be 3 to 5 days before you exit this physical body for good. But if you stop breathing, it could be minutes before you exit the body, where you lose consciousness and exit the body. So breathing is the most effective way to holding and manipulating consciousness. You know. So that's why that's so important.
Couldn't we hold and manipulate consciousness through Kundalini alone? Like if we were to tap into that energy, would that suffice? As opposed to needing to bring in external energy sources?
Yeah, but you can't, by the higher practices of pranayama is the retention of breath. So the retention of breath is the manipulation of Kundalini yoga, of Kundalini, the Kundalini power. I mean, you can't blink an eye without Kundalini. You can't breathe without Kundalini. You can't think, eat, or do anything without Kundalini. Kundalini is the power source of your body. So everything you do, you use Kundalini, use a portion of Kundalini. Now, how do you begin to control Kundalini? Is, like I said, through concentration, through mantra, and through pranayama. That's how you begin to tap into and control the power of Kundalini. Consciousness is Kundalini. You know, Kundalini is called the vehicle of consciousness. So you know, those things it's obvious. You know. Any other questions out there?
Not yet.
We have another question.
In depression, I am submerged in my mental and emotional. My body and me feels apart. Today, in that same state, I seem to be paused, yet I am aware of what I am experiencing. What is this state?
That's, if I understand right, that's just a level of concentration. And it depends on, it could be, a basic level of concentration. You have to understand that you are a multifaceted being, and that your physical body is actually separate from your mental body. Your physical body is separate from your astral body. Your physical body is separate from your pranic body. And your physical body is separate from your etheric body. And it's also separate from your mental body and your soul and your aura. In fact, all the bodies, your mental body, your etheric body, your pranic body, your primary pranic body, because all the bodies are made up of prana and matter. But your pranic body, your astral body, your physical body, all of these bodies exist within the auric fields of your auric body. If your auric body was removed, all the bodies would actually cease to exist. They will fall away and quickly begin to deteriorate, going back to its basic source. Of course, the auric body is the body of the soul. It's the body that the soul uses to move from one life to the next life, to the next life, to the next life. And the auric body is almost indestructible from what we understand. It is indestructible. And this body is the body that the soul used to move through millions of lives. And as it moves on, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So you can do basic practices of Raja Yoga, and you will feel a disconnect from this physical body. And if you do it enough, you'll feel a disconnect from the emotional body, which is really aspects of the astral body. You'll feel a disconnect of that body. And the more you get to know yourself, the I am, the I meaning the soul, the I am is the spirit, you will see the separation in all the facets, the different facets of your makeup. You'll begin to know that they are only tools being used by the soul. And then you will know that you, the spirit, has a body called the soul, and that you, the spirit, had no beginning and no end. And you, the spirit, created the soul in order to gain experience in the manifested worlds. Because the spirit lives in the unmanifested, because it had no beginning and it had no end. So that's that is what most people begin to feel in the beginning of doing concentration, so-called meditative practices. They begin to come to the realization of those things. And if they, again, if they linger there too much, they're not going to understand it. They're going to get caught up in it. They're going to think that they have achieved great things. And that's only the beginning. That's only the beginning. Because in the more advanced practices, you feel disconnected, and yet you feel connected to everything. And you begin to feel and realize and experience everything around you. And you begin to know things without making the effort to know things. Meaning that if something go wrong on the other side of the world that's alarming, you know without being told, because you're connected to everything. So that's the difference. Any other questions? I hope I answered that for you. Hope you understand. If not, let me know. Is that all the questions for today? On the write-up, did you see anything needs to be added there? Yeah, on that outline. That covers it pretty good, you think?
Are there any further questions? Maybe questions from previous classes? Do you mention group karma or collective karma here?
No, I didn't. I can do something on that.
Today might be a short class. Also inaction. And also inaction.
Huh?
Like when is inaction justified or the right karmic action to take?
What you mean by inaction?
Like either not responding or like there's a
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, folks, if there are no further questions, let's see how long we're going. If there are no further questions, then we may just wrap this up early.
Somebody said something.
Does Kundalini awakening happen in one time, or does it happen at different cycles of life gradually as we evolve?
Kundalini can happen, the awakening of Kundalini, you mean, right? The awakening of Kundalini can happen many, many times. Our only purpose here on earth is to wake up Kundalini and gain control over Kundalini and to be able to move Kundalini up and down the spine consciously. That's our only purpose for being here on this earth. So once mankind can move Kundalini up and down the spine consciously, without incident, then he can leave this earth, or he can leave this gross physical plane of existence, and live on a higher, more etheric plane, where he have greater access to subtle and great cosmic energies.
Do you have a preferred method of practice to raise your Kundalini?
It's the same thing that mankind been using for thousands of years. And I have lectures on this that goes deep into it. If you can go back, we have an archive of 400 videos or lectures. And in some of those lectures, we go deep into this subject. So there's at least 10 to 15 of those that we really went deep into it. Yoga means union with God. And what I do, I explain the 12 yogas. And the 12 yogas lead you to a particular yoga called Tantra Yoga. And Tantra Yoga is the yoga that you take. Tantra Yoga is the yoga that you take all the yogas and loom them together in order to throw the technique or the different tools of at least 10 yogas to raise Kundalini. They loom the yogas together and devise a technique in order to awaken Kundalini and then rise Kundalini up and down the spine. And that's been the method for thousands of years. It's been the method for thousands of years. So it's no secret, but it's only given to you when you're ready for it. But that's what it is. They take Jnana Yoga, Kama Yoga, Hatha Yoga. It's Jnana Yoga, Kama Yoga, Bhatha Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Mantra Yoga, Mudra Yoga, Kriya Yoga. They take all these yogas and they loom them together in order to bring about a movement of Kundalini at the base of the spine. And this is the two yogas that does this is Raja Yoga and Tantra Yoga. Raja Yoga uses the 8 limbs of yoga, which is a part of Tantra Yoga. And they throw everything at that, at aiming at awakening the Kundalini. And once they awaken the Kundalini, as I said earlier, this is done normally when a person have gained the ability to concentrate for at least 12 hours straight without fluctuation of that particular object or thing that is concentrating on. And at that point, you've gained the power to unlock, to untie the Kundalini, meaning that you wake up the Kundalini, and now you can raise the Kundalini up to a psychic center and be able to bring the Kundalini back down safely to the base of the spine, because you have to do that because you're living on the physical realm. So you can raise Kundalini all the way up to as strong as you are. It depends on how strong you are, what your concentration. You should be able to raise it up to the sex center or the solar plexus center at least, and then bring it back down. Open those centers with the Kundalini and then close it and then bring the Kundalini back down. If you make a mistake, you can hurt yourself. But that is that's a general overview. And you using those yogas. And in those yogas, like of course, Jnana Yoga is a yoga of wisdom. Karma Yoga is the yoga of laws, over action, right laws over action. Everything is Karma Yoga. All the yogas use Karma Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the yoga of devotion or service to God, meaning that you see God in everything. Hatha Yoga is the yoga of well-being. Raja Yoga is the yoga of mental power, of gaining control over the mental power. And then you have Mantra Yoga. Mantra Yoga is the yoga of sound. Mudra Yoga is the yoga of hand signs, of manipulating subtle energy through the use of hand signs and the use of body positions and head positions and arm positions. Then you have Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is the yoga of action again, but is designing your life around a particular way of predetermining your day. Predetermining your day, night, your waking time, and your sleep time. And then you have not Tantra Yoga. And Tantra Yoga is taking all these yogas and putting them in a particular order in order to help move and wake up Kundalini and control Kundalini. And then after that, you have Laya Yoga, where it's the yoga where you raise Kundalini and dissolve consciousness. And those are the yogas. And it's been around for thousands of years. So, any other question? I hope I answered your question. And we have a couple of tapes out there, a couple of lectures out there that we really go into it for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 hours, 15 hours if you listen to all of them. Did I answer his question? Did he?
Didn't respond.
Is that it? Any other questions?
Thanks. How do you make yoga a lifestyle?
Hmm. You may through following his precepts. That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what type of yoga you're going at, or because most yoga intertwine with each other. I'm sure you know that by
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you make it your lifestyle by living his precepts. You know, most yogis are vegetarians. They
Mm-hmm.
don't eat meat. Um, most yogis, they don't believe in violence. You know, um, they have a regiment with their life, how they do things, and they're very disciplined. And most yogis don't judge anyone else. They realize that life is a cycle, and that everybody is on their particular journey of lessons they have to learn. It don't matter what type of lifestyle they have, uh, uh, what type of belief system they have. They own their journey, and yogis realize that. They realize that we are born and die many times before we get it right. You know, so therefore we don't judge. We only help. We only try to help people. So I mean, that's living the life right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the yogis really adopt the understanding that Jesus had, where you help, you love everyone, including your enemy, and you assist everyone. You know, just as God do by allowing everyone to breathe, allowing water to be enough water to be on earth to help everyone, enough air, water, food. You know, so if God doesn't deny them, who are we to deny them? So that's the life of a yogi. Some people are yogis and don't even know they're
Mm-hmm.
yogis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so because a yogi means making union with God, and you make union with God by being an asset, not a liability. You know.
Okay.
No other questions?
Mm-hmm. as a normal person, when I start to be aware of my dual nature, what is this state of being?
A dual nature. What do they mean by dual nature? Do they mean the many facets of their existence?
I don't know.
Because understand this. This is another part of this is advanced mysticism. Because I don't. When I hear dual nature, I hear other aspects of myself. You, as we evolve, and this is mainly because of the karma of mankind. As we evolve, we we merge with other aspects of ourselves. And some people in the theosophical world and some in the metaphysical world, they call it your soulmate. And usually, uh, as you evolve, you become you merge with another aspect of yourself that's gaining experience out there in another life, probably even on another realm of existence. At the same time you are, and then when you gain enough information or knowledge or and skill level, that those two consciousness merge together, and they are reincarnated as one entity. Uh, People say you meet your soulmate. If you truly met your soulmate, you met yourself. And usually, when you meet your soulmate, is a feminine. If you male, then that soulmate is female. If you female, that soulmate is male. And you merge. When man get to a certain level of advancement, and woman too, they would be able to tap into their opposite selves because they have gained experience through many reincarnations of the opposite sex of them. You know, as Madame Blavatsky, uh, the uh, the founder of the Theosophical Society, um, stated in her Secret Doctrines that man was first a homogeneous being, meaning he was male and female. In fact, man stood for male and female. It stood for universal. If the right mystical text for it, but she described it in a more scientific way, calling them homogeneous beings, meaning that they had an equal level of female and male within them. And when as man moved on and could not karmically fulfill his destiny as a homogeneous being, he had to be, or it had to be split up, and they became homogeneous beings where the psychic part of man was taken out, and that psychic part of him became female, and what was left over became male, and then they moved on through uh, their reincarnation cycle, only to come back together again in their more advanced life. And when they reach adeptship or mastership, you'll even notice if it's a female, you'll notice the male quality in her. If it's a male, you'll notice the female quality in him. You know, not necessarily sexually, but mentally, intelligence. You know, they are able to reason on a female level and as well as a male level. So. I hope I answered your question.
She said, yeah, by dual nature, she means the polarity of feminine and masculine within as being and human. I guess they're saying they're becoming aware of their feminine and masculine energy.
Yeah, same. Well, it's kind of the same thing I was saying. Any other questions? How long we been on there?
About an hour. Okay. A little over an hour.
Not, then we can close out if there's no other questions. For more information, you can go to our YouTube site, and we have dozens and dozens and dozens of lectures there. We also have a website, mysticknowledge.org, where we have, I don't know how many books there, probably
Hundreds.
200, 300, 400, 500, 600 books there, and the books are free. Now, we would like you to make a donation, but the download is free. Um, so we welcome you to go to those two sites. And if you have any questions, you can always email us your questions. And we'll get back to you at least within a week, sometime within the next day or so. If there's no more questions, we'll be signing out with a prayer.
And for more instruction on the prayer technique that we use, you can watch a couple of previous lectures, one on mystic prayer, another lecture on how to pray, there's another lecture on the manipulation of prana. I'll give you very detailed steps and instructions on how we perform our mystic prayer, as well as you can request some handouts that have illustrations and diagrams explaining in detail how we pray.
The New Lord's Prayer. O divine and wondrous Spirit, O everlasting Lord of hosts, send forth now through me thy great and lasting power. Allow me, Almighty God, the lasting privilege of radiating to all the world thy great love, so that those who suffer may be given the power and energy to rise above their weaknesses. Almighty God, in great humility do I ask you to send forth your power, to give to me this great lasting privilege of being a channel, so that my suffering brothers may be helped and guided and healed and lifted into thy light, so that they who know not may look up, and in doing so receive to their higher selves your divine counsel. Almighty God, this day have you granted me a divine privilege. I ask you now to give to me the strength, so that never again will I turn from my inner vision of you. O great peace, great peace, great peace. In praise of your greatness, O God, doth my soul sing. Grant it energy to sing on forever and forever.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next class.